Fire Escape Engineers Inspector Summary Video. We're here in White Plains. The fire escape here is a one of 7. This one is going to be very typical of all the fire escapes. I'll go in great detail on this specific fire escape, what needs to be done. And the first one that we have, that's going to be a model that you're not going to see down below, is this railing. See this railing right here? This railing keeps me. I have approximately 12 inches. Look at my foot. My foot is about 11. I have only 12 inches to come out of this window. A lot of the windows, the sills are cracked, feeding water to the fire escape supports down below. So this rail is what keeps me from falling into this pit. None of the rails, none of the fire escapes below have this railing as a protective. So we need all the fire escapes below need a railing protective. This fire escape is showing age of at least 25 years of non-painting. I'd say almost 50 years, but at least 25 years this fire escape has not seen a paint job. So this fire escape is older than 1978, so it's presumed to have lead, so EPA rules apply. Must be a licensed renovator due to the lead content on this fire escape. Number 2, we've got square head bolts, which is original hardware. We got rivets and squares, original hardware. So when it's original hardware, what it means is that this fire escape, throughout the entire fire escape, 7 stories on this one, doesn't have one new bolt. And it's usually it's very impossible for a fire escape of this age not to have some changing out of bolts, and I'll explain why. In this corner is an example. That used to be a bolt, it's gone. That used to be a bolt, it's gone. So this railing is unsupported. Freeze and thaw is getting in here. Water gets in here, and through ice jacking and rust jacking, it pops this out. So this is one of the small holes, but this is not properly packed into the building, and it's causing problems in the structure. So now as I'm going this way, you can see this rail is keeping me from falling into the pit. Down below, you don't have such a protective. Through freeze and thaw, this is what happens. The water gets in there, and not only does it affect my iron, and the iron causes rust that causes this, and the water gets in there causing ice jacking that causes this. And this is what you can do. You can basically start pulling the cement out. So it's here, and you keep it going, it'll just let you pull the other one. Came out easier, but look what's happening in there. It's a combination of rust jacking and ice jacking. Then you get to every corner. Every single corner, I want to show you what's left of a bolt. Rust is underneath, jacking it up. What's left, there's nothing. There's no bolt, there's no bolt. Original hardware. Going down the stairs, I have a railing on the left side, which is very small. Should I fall, there's a possibility of me falling to the left. On the right, there's no railing at all. So if I was to fall, I would fall straight down into that cavity, and then I would fall back into additional stairs because there's no protective rail similar to this one. So it's very important that you see this rail, and there is no rail down below keeping me from falling into the pit. Staircase. 100% of the staircases are full of rust, and the rivets are, it's all riveted. Original hardware, square heads, rust inside. Original hardware, square bolts, rust inside. Rust is inside every one of these treads, and that's starting to push these clips apart. So we'll show you as we go down that ice jacking and rust jacking happening right there again. This is a stair stabilizer. As you can see, all that. Now, not any evidence of maintenance. It's heavily corroded, a lot of paling paint. So we're gonna have to be very careful as to what degree we go to get all this paint and capture. Look at the sills. The sills are all cracked. This sill is feeding water into my support, my support is all blown out, and so this support now needs to be repacked. You got a severe fracture here, which needs a mason to do this, not me. And look at that line. Now there's a major stress fracture there, so most likely this is going to have a mason come in here and work on this, because right now this sill is all cracked and feeding water in there. Look at all that water getting in there, feeding this mini support. Okay, let's continue. Every tread has rust in the connection, so all these need to be rebolted, and they're riveted. And that means you're gonna have to cut the rivet head on the outside. You have to cut that rivet head, and knock it out with a cutter. Pop these rivets out, take the treads out, clean them, prime them, put them back. Okay, while we're here, let's look in that corner. The angle was on the ground of this floor, so it's an unsupported corner now. Okay, look at all the cracking. This whole top floor, look at that crack that's coming from that sill. You follow that crack, and it goes all the way through every support. It's not evident down below. This is probably the worst floor that I've seen so far. But that crack is 12 feet long. And that water getting in, look at what it's doing here. This is a masonry crack. It's going up this way, diagonally, through this beautiful sill, up that way. So this is all water coming in from the fire escape, from that sill that's all broken. So this needs to have other things done here in order to get this dealt with. Okay, back to the fire escape. Photographs will show every corner is blown out. There's not one corner that has the head still left on the nut. The tiebacks, they're spalled out. They're not tied back correctly anymore. See the rail that's missing here? This rail that's missing here, if I come in, I have to hug the wall. Otherwise, if I was to make a miscalculation, I would fall into the pit. So, no rails. All of them need rails on the inside so that people, as they come around, they don't have time to think during a fire. And then going down again, missing rail on the right. We need to extend the rail on the left a little higher so that in case something happens, my hands can grab it on the left side, but on the right side definitely need a rail. Again, missing bolts, unsupported corners, original hardware. And you let spalling happen long enough, this is what occurs. Huge gaping hole. Huge. Water's getting in there every day, and that water is causing other damage to the physical wall. Never mind the fire escape, the physical wall is getting damaged. And no bolts in the back. So the only thing holding this corner is really what's left of the integrity of this corner, because the bottom, and here there's nothing tying. So this rail. So you got some life safety issues happening on this building. Going down. Again, the E-clips, which we call them the stringer clips, all need to be changed out. Severe rust on every tread. Oh, by the way, this is the clip that came from that corner up there. All right, that corner up there. This is the clip. So as you can see, and that's what happens to your rivets. There's nothing left of them, because this fire escape has had severe rust. Severe. Okay, coming back down. It's going to start repeating itself. Rust on every connection. Rust on every connection. So these need to be hammer tested to make sure that none of these are false. That'll be during a phase 2 inspection. Again, every bolt is gone. Corner. So a lot of rust jacking happening. Missing rails. Missing rails. Severe rust. A lot of flaky paint. I have to be very careful when I cross over. There's another shot of just water now starting to spall. There's rebar there. See, that rebar gets water, and then it just spalls these sills. Just general maintenance. And that spalling sill has caused that to crack right there. So a lot of water is coming from these windowsills, coming down and destroying. Ice jacking is occurring. You can see rust jacking right there. Look at the rust underneath, it's just bulging the rail. Bulging the rail. All the heads are missing though. So now it's starting to repeat itself. Stringers, railings missing, inside rails missing. Every tread has rust. Every sill has problems and feeding water, causing masonry. All this masonry belongs to a mason, not to a ironwork company. So they can repack temporarily the situation, only to have a mason come in here and open up some of these lines here and redo the brick. But the fire escape can be repaired prior to the mason getting in here. The mason company, if they're doing any work on this fire escape, they must release the fire escape and the sign off, because after the repairs are done, they need to be re-inspected and certified, because while they're working, they're probably gonna have to get on the fire escape. They have to release the ownership of the building and release the any company that did work on here, temporarily suspend the certificate, because they're going to be using it as a work platform, and they're responsible for anything that could happen on the fire escape, because the fire escape was not made to be used as a work platform. And if they're going to use it that way, they have to take all the liability associated with that. Look at all that rust. Huge, huge. All right, so now it's just repeating itself. There's a clip right up there where you can see, perfect shot right there. It's no longer attached. Okay, it's things like that. Stability of this fire escape is suspect. A lot of bricks popping. Okay. Cement spalling. This is a start. Then the holes just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger until it just blows out all these bricks. There's a piece of it where the brick is actually gone. Doesn't tie back into the building anymore. Rust jacking. So a lot of these rails are no longer supported by anything. No bolts, no heads. You know, this little rail going along. No heads. You know, there's no heads holding these rails. Again, no protective to keep me from dropping into the pit. Severe bulging. You can see the bow of the top of the rail. This is the staircase. This is the ladder system. It goes down, and that ladder system drops down to the ground. This is the top. You can see it needs to be tied. The only thing holding that hook down below that grabs the ladder is just one old square bolt. We need to talk about that. So now let's go down, see if we have anything. We have some metal sills that are starting to get water from above, and these things are happening. So this is a lot of severe scraping. Scraping first of this fire escape, then work can commence, because you got a lot of scrapings. I would scrape this fire escape down so then that the work can commence. So because the EPA requirements get all the scrapings down first. 100% of this fire escape should be scraped. Can't sandblast. EPA doesn't allow. Unless you encapsulate the whole building, and the cost associated with that is higher. 100% of the treads, rust. So the sills are so bad. There's another sill feeding water. This lower floor has got problems with every single support. This one's actually splitting a double support. Very bad. Look at all this. Okay. Rust jacking, tons of rust jacking. The landscaping on this building has changed. This ladder's supposed to drop another 2 feet. It didn't. Look at all that rust. Look at all that holes. So I can put my finger inside there. Okay. So all original hardware. No evidence of any maintenance ever on this building. And I suspect all the other fire escapes are going to be the same. So, in summary, let me just look at this hook here first. That hook is only being held by that piece right there. It needs to be changed out. This is holding the ladder. Okay. With that being said, the summary. 100% of this fire escape needs to be scraped. 100% of this fire escape needs to be rebolted because everything is rust jacked. Everything is popped, all its bolts. Life safety issues on all the rails. So it needs some emergency repairs in order to make it functional until such time that permanent repairs take effect. Which means coming in here and popping some of these bolts. Not necessarily have to clean out any of the rust for now, but get new bolts in here to guarantee that the structure is going to stay. So whatever vendor, it's definitely going to need engineer oversight. So the vendor needs to coordinate with us to give us his game plan and how he plans to repair the fire escape and secure the fire escape until such time that permanent repairs take effect. The city will require a permit, and you must be a licensed renovator to touch this project. Everybody must speak with the inspector of record, which is Ivan Fernandez, and otherwise no work can be performed unless he has, and we will provide him inspection criteria as well as repair criteria and guidelines for the engineer oversight required to get this fire escape certified in lieu of a load test. Any questions? Fire escape engineers, Inspector Meneses here. 800-649-3333. 800-649-3333. We're here in White Plains, New York. Fire escape engineers, inspect the summary video. Fire escape number 2 here in White Plains. 1 of 7. This is 2 of 7. And what we have here is a fire escape very similar to the in detail summary report that we did for fire escape number 1. Again, same thing. 100% of this fire escape needs to be painted. It's older than 1978, so it does have paint and lead. Must be a licensed renovator to touch this. With that being said, a full scraping is needed. But let's look at what else is wrong with the fire escape. Every rail corner, every rail has got ice jacking, severe rust in every corner. Everything's popped. This first floor's got, probably some of the most severe, but it's already popped in this corner. And as you go along the line, it's no longer connected, just out there in space. So this fire escape is not being held together too well. And that's what sort of keeps the nose on all the supports. Cement, it's not as bad as the first one. We do have structural cracks, spalling happening throughout every floor, but I believe that corner on that particular one has probably got the most weather. This one's in sort of a little pocket and protected by all these buildings, so it probably doesn't get as much snow. But structurally, she's got the rail on the outside, and that rail needs to be extended so that in case you fall, you don't fall throughout the fire escape. But then on the inside, there's no inside rail, as you can see, and no protective rail that's needed there so you don't fall inside the pit on every floor. Every floor is missing its rail, except for the top floor. There's the rail right there. There's a protective rail up there to keep you from falling into the pit. So it does have a roof access ladder, and this roof access ladder does need to be secured. All original hardware, as you can see. So, but this fire escape hasn't seen maintenance. I was looking for evidence of maintenance. It's nothing but original rivets and original square heads. Not one new bolt on a tread anywhere. And the treads have all the same issues as fire escape number 1. Again, 100% of the treads have rust buildup, and all that is to the point where some of these treads are going to let go in the future, and they're all riveted, which is by far one of the toughest. Rebolting is riveted fire escapes. They're very difficult. The ladder, as soon as you lift it up a little bit, that hook comes away, but that hook is only being held by one old bolt there. That needs to be changed out. Does fall down to the ground here. Does have a metal grate that should be resecured. It's starting to lift. And again, all original hardware holding that ladder. It will guillotine down. There's nothing slowing it down. We need to discuss this with the inspector of record, Ivan, whether or not he wants that ladder to be permanently mounted on the wall, 7 to 9 feet off the ground, and you just jump the last 7 to 9 feet, or if he wants us to leave this as is because it's a pre-existing condition, or does he want us to put weights on it so that it drops 2 to 3 feet per second. That is to be discussed with the inspector, and his final decision will then determine the repair. As you start getting up there, you're going to start seeing a lot of rust. Every rail has rust jacking. Every rail, rust jacking. Rust jacking in the corners. Popped every single bolt, rust jacking. Rust jacking. So everywhere, just repeats itself. This fire escape is a mirror. And they all have various repairs that need to be done, but 100% of all the bolts need to be done on that fire escape, and 100% of all the bolts need to be done on this. So it's really a small percentage change from one to the other, but everything has to be done, because the only way to guarantee any of these old 50 to 75-year-old bolts is to load test them, or in lieu of a load test, swap out the old bolts, put in new bolts, and then the inspector will not order a load test. Cement work, some cement work, and this one doesn't have it as bad as fire escape number 1, has to be done by a mason. Some of the temporary work will be done by the iron worker, which is well within his scope of work, within 4 to 8 inches square of the steel going into the building. But then if there's structural cracks on the wall, sill work, it's all to be done by a mason after all the fire escapes are repaired. Any work done on this fire escape by a mason, the certification is null and void until such time that the mason is done with all his work. Then you need to have the fire escapes re-inspected during any and all times that the mason is doing some work on the building and is using the fire escapes. The certification is null and void, and any and all responsibilities of anything that occurs on this fire escape lies solely with the contractor who's doing the work. Upon completion of his work, then the fire escapes are re-inspected and recertified in lieu of a load test. Any questions? Fire escape engineers, Inspector Manassas here. Fire escape number 2 of 7 here in White Plains. Fire escape inspector summary video. Fire escape engineers, Inspector Manassas here. I'm here in White Plains. This is fire escape number 3 of 7. And this fire escape, like fire escape number 1, has the same issues. I'm going to go in detail on this one, so that on the other ones we'll pretty much refer back to fire escape number 1, fire escape number 3. The uniqueness about this one is that it makes this corner and it ties back in. But we've got a lot of structural problems that tying in, especially in here. As it ties into the building, it's starting to let water get in there, and that water's causing ice jacking and rust jacking, and we got structural cracks down at every platform. Original hardware everywhere, and especially in this corner over here. Water's getting in there and rusting in that corner. More evident down below. We got AC units that kind of block your access to the ladder. That ladder needs to be secured. It's nothing but original hardware, so we need to reattach. And up and over the roof must be secured again. At the bottom, it's all original hardware, secured. Our biggest issue, first of all, let me speak about this rail. This is the only rail that we have up here. Yet this rail is missing on every floor down below. And if you make a miscalculation, you will fall into the pits and continuously fall 7 stories all the way down because it's missing its rail, and I'll show it. On the right side, the rail is not high enough. We need to extend another line up above. And we got cement issues. A lot of these ACs, and this AC is on its winter time now. We're in November, close to December, and we got an AC on, and that dripping water, like that AC unit right there, is causing problems. This whole wall looks like it was rebuilt or repointed, all because of a lot of times what comes from a sill, but a lot of times what comes from an AC unit, and I'll show that down below. Tie-ins, they're all popping, they're all jacking. So the forces of nature, rust jacking and ice jacking, let me show you what it's going to do on this floor down below. Okay, as you can see, I'm missing a rail, so I have to be very careful. So we have rust jacking here. We have rust jacking there. We have all the bolts heads are gone everywhere. All the bolt heads are gone. So now, what occurs here is that this railing is acting like a C-channel. So that's a piece of 4-inch flat and it married to that railing up above, it acts like a bridge truss. Every single railing bolt that ties it back to these flats is gone. And the corners are shot. So where they tie into the corners, the photographs will show. So every one of these supports that tie into the flat, that tie into this rail, have to work together. But every bolt, the nuts are gone. So the rails that were supposed to act like a truss are no longer here. The flat, that takes the nose of every piece of steel that goes out, it grabs that 4-inch flat that's supposed to grab that rail and act in conjunction with each other, in unison, and they're not. These things are only 8 to 12 inches deep into the wall, and they're solely relying on the fact that they have to join out there, tied to that flat tied to the railing, which acts like a truss, and that's why this fire escape is self-supporting, and it'll take that entire staircase. So we have a life safety issue on all 3 fire escapes so far, simply because right now everything is 50 to 75 years old, has popped. Every one of these has popped. So here we have a railing that the rails are all been eaten, and as we get further down, you'll see, again, missing rails. Spalling on all these is an indication that water's getting down below, making every one of these supports suspect. So this has all been worked on. This whole wall has been worked on. Some of it has been replaced. And further on down, water's still getting in there because it's jacking out the steel. And there's evidence because some of these treads, so some of these staircases are pushed out, they're bowing, indicating that there's a force inside this wall pushing the steel back out. Look at this staircase as it bows right out. So that's an indication that something's going on inside. That could have happened when that wall that got totally rebuilt down there pushed that bar pushed the staircase, and that staircase went to the right. But again, this railing tied in with that flat acts as a truss on all floors. Every one of these steel members is 4 to 8 inches into the wall here, but then it has to rely on the nose there because it needs the flat and the rail to create a truss. None of these rails, none of these flats are solid. They're all suspect, and some of them have popped as we further go down. But here's another issue with rust jacking. See all that debris in that corner? It's rust jacking and pushing this. As you can see, it's tight up against the wall, but as you go along, it gets wider and wider and wider, and it pulled it out of the building. And that's all rust right there. Huge amount of rust in that clip. So, everything. Missing rails, imminent hazard. You can fall, if you fall to the right, you'd fall 7 stories. Every one of these treads got rust in them. Huge, huge rust. I'll show you some issues here as you go down. Not only does it have huge rust, they used to be something that they put in here. And look, whatever was in there, I don't know if it was an old epoxy or a cement, but they cemented these edges and then painted. And that's all porous. Look at that. And that's what's been feeding water to this fire escape on the treads on each side. So every tread is huge amount of rust. Huge. EPA renovator license applies. I mean, we got too much. This is a lot of paint, a lot of issues here with scraping and painting. So must be a licensed EPA renovator. You can see the pressure that's being exerted by this thing pushing it out. So this wall at one time that got totally rebuilt must have pushed out, and I got a big bow. And again, we're relying. So here's a perfect example of a corner, and the bolt is gone. That bolt, if you can hold on while I focus, you can see right through. Right there. There's nothing. Okay. No shaft, no nothing. Rust jacking. So all the corners are shot, all the heads are eaten or missing totally. So none of these rails are acting in unison. So everything is just gone. We got debris, we got ACs feeding water constantly to this fire escape. A lot of rust jacking, a lot of ice jacking, missing rails, life safety issue. This has got a huge amount of dirt and freeze and thaw happening there. And it totally blew out that corner there. Okay, and a lot of these huge structural cracks now on the wall. coming specifically from this corner. It gets worse as we keep going down. Look at that huge structural crack coming from that one up above. Huge. So aside from fixing this fire escape, we now have a wall issue that's feeding water into these apartments. Okay, so this fire escape does have a life safety issue, like fire escape number 1 and fire escape number 2. Not made to take a load. It's supposed to support 100 pounds per square foot, but the way that all the bolts are popped, it will not hold it. This fire escape is only embedded into the wall 8 to 12 inches, and it needs to rely on this flat plus this railing to act as a truss. I'll repeat that as we keep going down, because not many people know how fire escapes are built. And it's very important to note that it's not very deep. It's not very deep into this wall. It's through this veneer, which is only about 3 inches, and then the course of masonry wall inside, which is about 1 foot of masonry wall. Can't go any further. This is a perfect example of a false corner. From above, you can see, yes, you know, the one side has popped, the other side is still there. But now, if I come down here, you see what you really got. Nothing. Nothing's there. Okay? Rust jacking. Okay? Rust jacking. It's destroying this entire fire escape. And this fire escape is not structurally sound, because every single one of these bolts, excuse me for the wiggling, is relying. So now, look at that one. Gone. So that corner is not even there. You can see air through it. Bolts missing. Everything. So, and some of this is so bad. I mean, just look how bad the eating of it is. There's a lot of work here. A lot of work here. And these fire escape ACs are sticking out too far, causing an issue. No railing here. Somebody's going to fall into the pit. And if you fall into the pit, there's nothing stopping you from continuously falling all the way to the ground. A lot of sills just keep feeding water back down. That water back down. We've got bricks falling. This is pieces of brick from above that have fallen. Okay. You can see it's missing the rail on the left side still. You have to be very careful when I go down. This is probably going to be getting to some of the worst floors. You can see up there, see? It's not tied back in anymore. So that support is unsupported. It's 8 to 12 inches deep into the wall there. Hits a corner, relying on a railing and a flat, 1/4 inch flat by 4 inch. And then it'll do it'll support. Yes? Just doing a fire escape inspection. Okay, here's another unsupported corner right here. And again, looks good from the top as far as, but the bolts are all gone. But when you get down here, severe, it's missing, there's nothing there. So this is another unsupported corner. Look at all the rust jacking that's happening there. Very, very bad. Life safety issues on this fire escape throughout. Hall floors, first 3 fire escapes, all have similar. I estimate that this fire escape is at least 25 years to 50 years worth of neglect. Not one evidence of any maintenance on the fire escape, meaning a change of bolt. I'm looking for a hex head. These are all square heads. I'm looking for a hex head of some kind that shows evidence of maintenance. Not since this fire escape was built did anybody ever change one bolt that I could see on this fire escape. Not one. Again, there's no evidence of a welding repair that I can see. But there's evidence of rust jacking, evidence of popping. This fire escape is structurally unsound, will not hold a load of 100 pounds per square foot in the as-is condition. Tons and tons of water getting into this one. You can see all the structural cracks. See how the water's getting in up there? Okay. We got walls. Water's getting in here. So this is consistently, I mean, look at that one. Water's going to get in there consistently. The water's going to get in there. cause issue. That's a good example of a typical foot and how much room you really have to walk sideways like a penguin in order to not fall into the pit. And as you can see, if you fall 10 feet on average. So look at the bulging and the bowing of it right here. Every single one of these bolts is gone. So now we're pretty much done with the repeating. So that's the structural issue. Now we're going to deal with the ladder. Got tons of problems on this fire escape. 100% refurbishment in order to pass a load test. All the bolts are gone. This ladder, this hook, original bolt. Just tons and tons of problems. Look at the rust jacking there. It takes 25 years to grow a 1/4 inch. This is 1/2 inch. 50 years to grow this much rust. You can see I have the ability to almost pop it. But again, unsupported. The ladder has to be cut so that it drops exactly down to the right location. It's right over a door. So this is one of our concerns, is that when you let this ladder drop, it'll guillotine down on somebody trying to get away. So they may want to extend this balcony. This is again a conversation with the inspector. And the inspector will allow us to possibly extend the fire escape to that area over there, so that when the ladder goes down, it does not hurt anybody, and there's still plenty of room to jump through the bushes there and get away to safety. Because right now it's a life safety issue when it drops down by anybody just trying to get away. They could drop it on a fireman or drop it on an occupant trying to flee the building. So again, structural. You know, that's, we can't say enough. 100% refurbishment, licensed renovator, permits required. These are all, this is a perfect example. This is no longer tied. This is no longer tied. This is a piece of steel that is supposed to rely on that flat bar, that relies on this railing as a truss, that's supporting the steel into the building 8 to 12 inches deep. Otherwise, what it's supposed to have, if you weren't relying on the end there of the trussing and the flat system, you were supposed to have a support coming down. So let me just give an example. So I'm supposed to have a support coming from that tip down to here, a diagonal. You eliminate the need for a diagonal by doing this kind of system where the railing acts like a truss plus the 4-inch flat. It's all in unison. Without it, you have an unsupported. So you put enough load on this fire escape that will fall down in the end, coming down, and everybody in it will fall down, taking with it staircases and everything. So it'll have a domino effect. Fire escape has emergency issues, and it also is in need of a full repair, full paint job, full refurbishment, no evidence of any maintenance. Any questions? Fire escape engineers. Inspector summary video. This is Inspector Meneses, 800-649-33. Engineers inspector summary video. We're here in White Plains. This is fire escape number 4 of 7 issues. It's just like fire escapes 1 through 3. We have life safety issues. Basically, these supports that are all being ice jacked, a lot of debris falling. This is the top floor. A lot of severe cracking. Water's getting into every single one of these corners on both sides. Basically, this railing is acting as a truss. This truss is tied into a piece of flat. This piece of flat is tied into the end points of every one of these. Every single one of these is 4 to 8 inches into the wall, as previously explained. So basically, we have an unsupported structure here because the railing and the flats are no longer connected. Corners are shot, heads are missing of what used to tie in the supports back into the wall. So basically, this is an unsupported structure. Life safety issues on this particular fire escape also. This is the only one that has a railing. Every floor has to have one of these protective railings that stop me from falling. You got a lot more room on this. Fire escape engineers inspect the summary video. Fire escape number 5 of 7. And here we have fire escape here. Same situation as the first 4 fire escapes. We got a lot of water intrusion into the wall, causing a lot of damage, causing severe cracks to the wall. A lot of people on these buildings have been doing a lot of masonry work only to not get to the root of the problem, and that is the fact that the steel is letting water get in there, as well as the sills is feeding water to the steel, causing ice jacking, causing rust jacking. We got rust happening everywhere, you know. So unsupported excuse me, unsupported platforms, rails, all popping, original hardware, no evidence of any maintenance anywhere. All the treads are original hardware. All the treads are showing rust in every connection. All of them. Needs a full scrape and paint. Renovator license requirements. Just again, everything's similar to the first. But basically what's happening, if you come in here, see the outside, not even connected anymore. So this is an unsupported platform that really was relying on the flat that goes across. That's a 4" by 1/4 flat. That's tied into the railing that's acting as a gusset, as a truss. And that truss is basically what's supporting the platforms, staircases. It's only buried 8 to 12 inches deep into the wall. And when you have undue stress, it starts popping just like that. So with that, this fire escape hasn't seen any repairs, and it's been bad like this for at least 25 to 50 years. And look, even it's missing. It fell. What the piece that was there fell. Now at one time, and I'll just quickly go to another fire escape here, and there's a piece of strap right up there. So see that piece of steel that's on there, and then it goes out. It's not a branch, that's a piece of steel that's 4" flat just dangling out there on that floor. See how it's just waving in the wind? Well, that waved in the wind on this one, on that floor. So this is again another unsafe structure. All the supports will not hold 100 pounds per square foot. So occupants and or firemen will not, if they were to fully load this fire escape, we'd have a collapse of some kind. So very much like the other floors, very much like the other fire escapes, this fire escape needs 100% refurbishment of any and all connections, and every one of the tiebacks into the building need to be verified and or duplicated through an epoxy bolt or a through bolt into the building. Any questions? Fire escape engineers, inspector summary video. This is Inspector Meneses, 800-649-3333. This is fire escape number 5 of 7. Fire escape engineers, inspector summary video. This is fire escape number 6 of 7. There is no access to this fire escape, but we are going to talk about some of the issues that it has. It's an enclosed area. We have a ladder that doesn't come all the way to the ground. So the ladder there and the landscaping down below needs to be addressed so that the ladder does go down and hits the ground. The main issue on this fire escape number 6, as you can see, is the dangling piece of steel. This is one of the reasons why it's very difficult to walk up, because a lot of these are just original hardware that has popped all its bolts. A lot of rust jacking, severe rusting on all the connections, as you can see there. Severe. Going up one floor, you can see the severe rusting in all the joints and all the corners. Okay, severe rust into the building. All the staircases are original hardware, full of rust. This one is 7 stories as opposed to every other one being 6 platforms. This one has 7 platforms. No railings. No railings protecting you from falling into the pit. All the fire escapes on the left side don't have a rail on the left side. Cement issues, clips, supports. All these platforms will not support a load because, again, the outside flats like that one that are made to be married to the rail. The rail acts like a truss tied into that 4" flat, tying in and unifying all the supports. Every single one of them is popped, and these flats are falling off the front face. So a life safety issue on this entire structure. Any and all problems on this fire escape similar to fire escapes 1 through 5. Any questions? Fire escape engineers, inspector summary video. This is fire escape number 6 of 7 here in White Plains. Fire escape engineers, inspector summary video. Inspector Meneses here. We're here in White Plains, New York, and this is the 7th fire escape of 7 total around this building. This fire escape is very much like the very first one, so I'll be brief in this one because it refers back to what we've seen on all the other fire escapes. We have, first of all, life safety issues in all the fire escapes, including this one, in that the front flat is no longer supporting that railing in the front, and that flat working together is a truss that basically allows the support structure to be holding each platform, which is then only tied back into the building, 8 to 12 inches. Everything must work together in order to support the staircases and such. This fire escape has no evidence of any bolts No change bolts anywhere. This fire escape is 50 to 75 years old and it has not had any evidence of maintenance. Very severely corroded, very severely rusted. A lot of the joints in the corners are gone. So all the bolts are square heads or rivets. This fire escape has not seen any maintenance in 50 to 75 years at least. And no new hardware to be found anywhere. Ladder drops to the ground. You got to do a little bit of trimming over there because you got to be able to get out of there and come down to a public way. So we need to create a path of some sort. There's pipes, there's drainage, there's all kinds of things happening here that need to be addressed as to when you come down off that ladder, where do you go? Needs a full paint job, licensed renovator required, permits required in order to perform any work. A lot of cement issues are more evident on the other fire escape than this one, but this cement, if the water isn't coming in from the sills, the water is coming in from cracks above the T-bars and the C-channels that are tying into the building. So you see evidence, you got a lot of rusty tiers coming down on the walls. Rails are missing on the inside protective, so you don't fall down the stairs. The only railing there is really up on the roof one, but we need railings all the way down so that nobody falls. 100% rebolting of all the treads, 100% rebolting of all the structural, 100%. This fire escape has treads that are all riveted, never change of any bolts, but heavily corroded from above. And like fire escapes number 1 through 6, this fire escape will not take a load in the current condition that it's in. The requirement is 100 pounds per square foot, and due to the fact that all the rivets and the bolts have either popped or are severely corroded, this fire escape has life safety issues. Any questions, fire escape engineers, Inspector Manassas, 800-649-3333, 800-649-3333. Welcome to Firescape Services. We provide inspections and certifications, repairs, and load tests to remove violations in your area and nationwide. So whether you're an inspector or whether you're somebody, you have your own home, you have your own building, the first thing is the law is very clear. It must be structurally sound and must be kept painted. So is the fire escape painted or is it not painted? And does it have more paint than rust or more rust than paint? So I can just look at this fire escape and say that I have evidence right now that there's more rust than paint on this fire escape. So immediately, if you were to call an inspector out here, the law doesn't allow him to pass this fire escape simply because it has more rust than paint. And structural means that if the fire escape is 50 to 75 years old, when any inspector is looking at it, he's got to see some evidence of maintenance. And maintenance means that I have to see a change in bolts, I have to see a change in rivets, I have to see some new hardware. Because when I go up to a fire escape, I see nothing but original hardware. That hardware is 50 to 75 years old. It's been out in the weather 50 to 75 years, and it's just impossible for not one of those rivets, one of those bolts to be changed in 50 to 75 years. And whenever that occurs, what I have is a fire escape that somebody's been constantly painting, but they've never done anything structurally to it. So now that makes the entire fire escape pretty much suspect. So now I have to be careful as to what I'm looking at to make sure that the structural now, on especially the major structural connections, are in good order. Thank you for watching our video. Please call us today at 800-649-3333 to discuss your fire escape issue with a live inspector or schedule an inspection in your area today.
The smoke, the flames, and the frightened faces, all in a firefighter's line of duty. But Chief William Hitchcock remembers the night it wasn't the fire that almost stopped him.
Oh, I was scared to death.
But the fire escape that broke underneath him.
Where the railing just came away from the building.
And our investigation found across Massachusetts more unsafe fire escapes. Rusty, deteriorating, crumbling, broken. And what state officials didn't know, the system they set up to keep fire escapes safe is also falling apart.
The potential ramifications are disastrous.
So let's look at this one. This expert ironworker is licensed to build, maintain, and inspect fire escapes. So then over here? For months, we examined dozens of them with alarming results.
Looking at this today, would this pass inspection?
No.
In dormitories, at theaters, at homes, and apartment buildings.
Rust is actually eating away the metal of the fire escape.
Correct.
And the bottom line?
It'll get weak and then eventually it'll fall.
This one has rotted connections. This one missing bolts, twisted metal.
Would the stairs come down?
No, never come down.
This one a broken tread.
So how dangerous is it for the people inside this building?
This fire escape is definitely going to put somebody either in the hospital or it's going to put somebody in a cemetery.
Fire escapes are so critical. The state building code requires they be certified for structural adequacy and safety every 5 years. But our investigation found that safeguard is simply being ignored. Here's proof. We chose fire escapes at random in Boston, Somerville, Cambridge, Worcester, and here in Quincy. We checked building department files,
But there's no fire escape certification.
Not in this file.
to see if building owners had submitted their mandatory inspection reports.
There's no certification in this one either.
Right.
Bottom line, not one we checked in Quincy had been certified as safe. And the director of inspectional services admitted because of staffing shortages, the city has no idea how many other fire escape owners are breaking the rules.
And as a result, do you know how many fire escapes in your city are safe or not?
Well, I don't know.
In Worcester, not one we checked was certified. In Somerville,
No.
4 more fire escapes,
Did it fall through the cracks? Yeah.
not one up-to-date certification. And again, no system for keeping track.
How can they get away with that?
I guess that the shortest answer of all is because we don't have the resources to sit here and follow up on these things.
If structural deficiencies are reported, local building inspectors can actually evacuate residents until repairs are made.
Would you talk to us on camera about this? No?
But when we surveyed 24 more communities, most admitted they had no idea how many fire escapes were certified. In Taunton, inspectors told us they haven't seen a certification in 25 years. Northampton officials said it's a cold day in hell when that happens. In Cambridge, too, not one of our test buildings was certified, and the official in charge would not come out to discuss it. In Boston, where there are more than 8,000 fire escapes, again, according to inspectional services, not one we checked was certified. Officials know they are required to enforce the building code, but they admit they don't always know if owners are breaking the law.
The building code is being ignored.
Right, but it's difficult to write a violation when you don't have knowledge of something like that.
But state officials say for a critical issue like this, communities should know. And they warn the Massachusetts building code is not optional.
Does it worry you that these fire escapes are not being certified?
This is an important issue and should not be ignored.
That's because after the smoke and flames begin, it'll be too late to learn you've got no way out.
I can't stress it enough, Hank, that these things have to be maintained and someone's got to be watching.
As a result of our investigation, state officials will now issue an alert to local inspectors. Meanwhile, if there's a fire escape on your home or office, you can contact your local building department to make sure it's properly certified. In the newsroom, I'm Hank Philippi Ryan.